I'm Savvy, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Litmas. So today's theme is something that really stuck in my craw. And it turns out I didn't know what stuck in my craw meant. I just had never heard that phrase before. Does that ever happen to you guys? Like where there's a really common phrase that everybody knows and everyone's heard, but like you've just never heard it somehow? Or like there's a common fact that everyone knows and like you're not living under a rock or anything. You're like out there in the world like everyone else. It's just that you and that thing have never intersected somehow, and when it hits you it's like, whoa. That's like a really existential way to look at the situation of me just not having heard a term before, but anyway, so I didn't know what stuck in my craw meant. So I originally thought it just meant like something that stuck with you. So being the relentless idealist that I was, I had planned out a video on talking about the Own Voices movement and how much I love it and how much it stuck with me this year. And then I looked up what stuck in my craw meant, and it turns out it's a negative thing. It's like something that annoyed you that like you're still holding on to. And I was like, oh, well, that doesn't work for that because that would be a good thing, and this is a bad thing. So then I realized I have to make a video about something that I didn't like this year, and I was like, oh, I see, okay. So made a last minute change there. But luckily, I'm good at complaining as well, so here we go. I guess the thing that I'm holding on to the most anger about this year is a publishing industry panel that I went to. I won't say who the publishers were that were there or where this panel is held. I won't give away any details, but the topic of gatekeeping came up, and I have very strong feelings on the concept of gatekeeping, and this publisher had very different feelings than I did, and originally I had wanted to pitch a book to this publisher, so I ended up, not wanting to work with them anymore, and I kind of want to rant about the concept of gatekeeping. To me, I see gatekeeping as when people say, like, you're not a real X unless you do Y, or when somebody says, oh, we choose what the good quality is, we choose what to let in and what to keep out, and I don't think that's generally a good thing overall. Like, sure, there's some things where gatekeeping is necessary. For example, if you want to be a doctor, you're going to have to go to medical school. If you don't go to medical school and get your license, you are going to be gate-kept out of being a doctor, and for good reason, right? Because people's lives are at risk. In those cases, things like that, I think gatekeeping makes sense. Where I don't think gatekeeping makes sense is in terms of books, in terms of stories, in terms of things that are here to just enrich our lives and make them better. I don't think there's any place for gatekeeping, and I think that everyone is and should be allowed to share their ideas equally and have their voices heard. So I recently made a video where I talked about my feelings on the publishing industry and why we shouldn't look at it as a binary, why there's not just traditional publishing and self-publishing, but there's also a whole slew of different options and a whole bunch of different ways we can look at it, and that finding equality in the voices in the industry of books is going to come not from seeing those types of books as equal to each other, but rather from seeing the book industry not broken into halves in the first place. So I guess what bothers me is the fact that a lot of people want to hold on to keeping it stuck in those halves, and that leads to the concept of gatekeeping. When I was at this panel, the topic of like self-publishing came up, and the person who was there from this publishing company was like, yeah, a lot of people think that's a good option for them, a lot of people find success that way, whatever. And then she kind of mentioned that like a lot of people might self-publish because they're not a fan of gatekeeping. They're not a fan of having a publisher be the person to tell them this book is valid and this one isn't. And she was like, but as a publisher, it is kind of our job to gatekeep, and we think that gatekeeping can be a good thing because we want to like gather the best quality of literature possible and to put out there. And I was like, that is some bullshit, okay? I understand publishers have a job to do, and it's a difficult job. I understand that they're getting thousands of different books sent to them and can only pick a select few, and that is going to lead to having to make some difficult decisions. 100% understand that. I work as a freelance editor, and I work with clients who have agents, who sign with big publishers, who do books independently. I work with clients who do books in all kinds of ways. But I don't think that saying that gatekeeping is a good thing is the way to go about that. Because when it comes down to it, they a lot of times are gatekeeping for what market research tells them is going to sell at this moment. And that's a reasonable thing to do. Like, that's good business. I 100% understand and support that. But what I don't support is a publisher saying, sometimes we have to be the gatekeeper, and I think that's actually a good thing. Like, no, it's not a good thing. It's an unfortunate thing. It's like a necessary evil, and I cannot really support people who support the concept of gatekeeping. That, and I felt that a lot of publishers that I've seen talking at panels don't understand the independent publishing industry or community, that they think that, like, self-publishing is the only other option as opposed to them, and that people are choosing that either as a backup because they got rejected, which is almost always false, or that people are self-publishing their book because they're like impatient and they want to get it out there and they'd rather pay to put their book out there rather than have someone else pay them. Like, that's not even true. I don't think they understand a lot of authors' actual motivations. I guess I just think that it's weird that books are kind of the one product that a lot of people think is cool to regulate. Like, sure, you need to regulate food and medicine and things like that, but books are ideas and they're stories, and that a lot of publishers say, like, oh, we're checking to have the utmost quality, we're gatekeeping to make sure only the best books get through. It's like, yes, you have to do that as a publisher because that is your business and that's the only way to survive in the industry. But to act like gatekeeping is a good thing is to basically boil down the concept of books as something that should be regulated and something that it should be controlled, whose ideas get spread the widest, when in reality that should be up to people and consumers to decide when reading a book, like, do I like this book or do I not, you know? And this is really just kind of an all over the place nonsensical rant at this point. I could talk about this idea forever, but if you want to see like a more coherent discussion that I have about this, I recommend checking out my video that I did about the publishing industry, about traditional versus self-publishing and why we shouldn't be putting them against each other in the first place, and why publishing should be a spectrum. I will link that video in the description below so you guys can check that one out instead, because I think I do a lot more coherent job of explaining how I feel about that. But yeah, I guess just this year being at that panel and watching some people from the industry speak and basically say outright, yes, gatekeeping is a good thing and we support it, it just kind of made me upset and made me feel like not only do they not really understand independent publishing and the people who do it, but they also kind of have just fundamentally different beliefs about books and literature and stories and all of that than I do. And that's okay, people can have different opinions, but I would say that would be the thing that probably annoyed me or stuck in my craw the most this year. I hope I'm using that phrase correctly now that I've Googled what it meant. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be back tomorrow with another video for the 12 days of Litmas, and I am also working on some other videos for the end of December, such as like an in-December video where I'm going to be doing a wrap-up talking about the indie books that I read this year, so I'll look forward to sharing all of that with you guys. But please like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos, and I look forward to seeing you guys more later. Bye!